This week's episode is for the parents, and I'm telling you that I want you to stop telling your kids to not have sex. What? Yes, stay tuned. You'll see what I'm talking about. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Dr. Jennifer Lincoln, board-certified OBGYN, author, educator, podcaster, and this is the channel, the health class you wish you had in high school. Go ahead and subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and turn on the bell so you never miss an episode. This week's episode, I kind of let in with a little clickbaity thing, and there's a reason for it. Here's what I'm talking about today. When you as a parent tell your teenagers to not have sex, I know that you might not like this, just doing that doesn't work. So I want to talk about what doesn't work and what you should be doing instead. The whole premise of this is that abstinence-only education, which is when young people are taught to not have sex, and that's literally it, they're not taught anything else, we know it doesn't work. And I know you don't want that to be true. I'm not only an OBGYN, I'm a parent, and I wish that the stuff we tell our kids, they would just listen to. Yeah, but remember how when you were a teenager too? Like, how well did that work? So rather than me just telling you that because you're probably thinking, oh God, she just, she's not listening. She doesn't know my kid, or she just wants us to come into the office and get birth control because that's how she makes money. I want to give you actual data because the data don't lie. So first of all, let me just define a little more what we call abstinence-only education, or abstinence only until marriage, or sexual risk avoidance. It's teaching students or our own children only abstinence, and that's the only way to protect themselves. These are programs that tend to be pretty, how do I say this? Old-fashioned. It's very much they separate the boys in one class, the girls in the other. It's very much, the guys are the aggressive ones and they're going to come at you and want to have sex, and the girls need to avoid it and they need to, put off the guys. And there's a lot of gender stereotyping, and it tends to be very focused on only male, female. It doesn't really take into account other kinds of relationships, other kinds of gender identities and expressions. And it just doesn't work. There are other programs too called Abstinence Plus, which are programs that really stress abstinence. They might sprinkle in a little other kinds of education, maybe very superficially about menstrual cycles and birth control, but they don't really get into it. And then the third kind of sex ed, which is my favorite because it works, is called comprehensive sex education, which is where, you guessed it, we talk about all the things. Yes, including abstinence, and absolutely agreeing that the only way to 100% know that you're not going to get pregnant is to not put a penis in a vagina. I don't know why those are the hand motions I use, but that's what we've got. So let's just dive into some numbers a little bit more so you can understand what our students are getting and what they're not getting, unfortunately. So 38 states and the District of Columbia mandate sex education and or HIV education. Yeah, the number is not 50. So great. Do we wonder why the United States has the highest rate of teen pregnancy in developed nations? Only 17 states require that this information be medically accurate. That means 33 states don't require that when your child or your teenager is being taught sex education, they don't require that it has to be accurate or correct. Like what? Like why is that? And quite frankly, I feel like if you're going to teach people the wrong information, then don't teach it to them at all. You're doing way more harm. Only 20 states and the District of Columbia require that sex education talk about birth control. Only 20. And when it comes to HIV education, and I have to look at this because I don't believe it, but it's true. Only 19 states require that when we're talking about HIV, that we also talk about things like condoms. So I don't know about you, but I do know that when it comes to talking about HIV, especially, abstinence only, of course, the only 100% way you're not going to get it. But like, come on, you're not talking about condoms in the same sentence? Like, and just another really fun number for you here. So the top 10 states that have the highest teen pregnancy rate, you can see them all here. We're so proud. They all emphasize abstinence, and 5 of them provide no education. So as if that's not information enough, like, hey, it's not working because the teens are getting pregnant. We have even better data, multiple studies, which I'll put down in the show notes, which show that when we look at people who got abstinence-only education compared to those who got comprehensive education, the abstinence-only education doesn't work. It doesn't decrease the number of sex partners they have. It doesn't make them wait longer to have their first episode of sex. And if they're already having sex, it doesn't make them abstinent again, which we call secondary abstinence. It makes them only more likely to get pregnant and more likely to get sexually transmitted infections. So it's not working. And the opposite is working, which is when we talk about sex education, Those are the young people who do delay having sex, who are less likely to get pregnant and less likely to get infections. When they have sex, it's later and with fewer partners. And when they do have sex, they're more likely to use protection. These are not my opinions. These are actually things that we've seen in studies. So why is it that in the late 90s and early 2000s, we spent $1.5 billion with a B dollars in this country on a kind of education that doesn't work? And today, while we're not spending as much federal funding, we're still spending too much, and it really at the local level, at local school boards and states, in states where teens are suffering the most from rates of pregnancy and infections, they're not being given the tools based on outdated thoughts and on religious-based things, and we know that it doesn't work. So what can you do as a parent? I know I led in with, don't tell your kids just not to have sex. You can do that, and you need to go a step further. You need to tell them really the good information, the stuff that if they do choose to have it, they're going to do it safely. And we know that when we talk about this stuff, not only are they not likely to go out and have sex because they think it's some kind of green light, but we know that they're going to wait longer and they're going to do it safer when they do. And again, remember when you were a teenager, what do you wish you had known? So I know it might feel overwhelming, like, oh my goodness, Dr. Jen, what do you want me to say? I was never taught. How am I supposed to know? I got you. I got a ton of great resources on how to do it in this video up here, and I'm going to put a ton down in the show notes below. But my take-home message for you is just know that sticking our heads in the sand as parents, it's not the best thing, and just wishing that our kids wouldn't have sex, that's not going to work either. And I hear you. As a mom, as a doctor, I know that it's not always super fun to think about our kids doing these things, but we got to set them up for success. So what questions do you have about how do we talk to our kids? What do you want me to cover? Go ahead and drop a comment or a question in the comment section. Follow me elsewhere where I've got lots of other great information about this kind of stuff on my social media at Dr. Jennifer Lincoln on Instagram and TikTok, and my podcast too. I cover a lot of this stuff too. The Let's Talk About Down There podcast, which you can see here. You can call this number here, leave me a voicemail, and I'll answer your question. And just know we're all in this together, parents and doctors. We're all on one team. We want the best things for our kids, so let's go ahead and give it to them. All right, everybody, stay safe and get talking.